and she's pregnant, get help. No, what you're going to hear is that after he shot them in the head, he moved Matthew's lifeless body into the back seat. He got in the driver's seat next to Savannah, and he drove them to that apartment complex less than a mile from his house where he would dump the bodies. And on the way there, he called his parents. And he asked them to meet him so he could have a ride home. And you're going to hear that when he got to that apartment, he found the most obscure, far-off corner where he could park that car next to that pile of scrap lumber up against a fence in hopes that it wouldn't be found for a while. And then he wiped it down, and then he got in his dad's truck with his parents, and he went home, where he seemingly hid out for a while. Because from the time he killed them to the time he was found, 13 days passed. They were in that car for 5 days before they were found. 5 days he left them there. Now you're going to hear that once the police got to the door of Christopher Preciado, that's the first time he says that he was a victim. But the evidence isn't going to support that. We talked in jury selection about the elements of self-defense and what is required, those 4 legs of that chair. And you're going to hear that the evidence does not support any of those elements. You're going to hear from Detective Goodwin, who was the lead investigator on this case. And he's going to tell you that the more he evaluated, the more he investigated, the more he uncovered, the more inconsistent Christopher's story was with the facts and the evidence. You're also going to hear from Dr. Molina, who is the medical examiner. She examined both of their bodies. And she's going to tell you that the physical evidence, the locations of their gunshot wounds, the trajectories of the bullets through their heads, that's physical evidence that doesn't lie. And she's going to tell you, based on the evaluation of that evidence, the way Chris explained this happening is not consistent with that scientific evidence. Because again, the evidence is not going to support a justification here, because he did not do this because he was in fear for his life. He did it for money. He did it because he needed it, and Matthew had it. That's what the evidence is going to support. Now, because of the nature of the case, I have to warn you, there are going to be things that you're going to hear and that you're going to see that are going to be difficult. But like we talked about during jury selection, we have to prove every single one of these elements beyond a reasonable doubt for every single one of these counts. And we have to disprove self-defense beyond a reasonable doubt. So we're going to have to bring you that hard evidence, but we will try our best to be sensitive to the nature of the evidence. But we have to bring it to you for Matthew and Savannah and for Fabian. Because at the end of the day, you're going to hear that there was nothing that happened in that car on that night that justified Christopher Preciado in taking out a gun and taking out an entire family in less than 30 seconds. So we're going to ask that you hold him accountable for that, and that you find him guilty of all 3 counts of capital murder.